everybody. Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Claudia Bellafato, all out here at the DraftKings studio in Boston as it is finally draft day. We made it here. Wandering across the sea of mock drafts for 40 days and 40 nights has finally spit us out on the other side. Sweet merciful Christ. We've got a great show for you guys. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review it. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. The best of GoJo and Golic from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern on VSiN, wherever you got that on the radio. Jam-packed show. Great guest today. Claudia, what do we got coming up for the people?
And the best part of today, too, is everybody's just hammering those hot takes just in case they hit, because you never know. Coming up, Alt Rock, speaking of prospects, top tackle prospect, Joe Alt will join us in hour one. On the clock, Mina and Dianna Russini in hour two. How did we get so lucky to land them both? And do you even lift, Spo? Yes. It is me. I am the reason that the Heat, even the series last night against the Celtics, I'm sorry. I'll take a gentleman's sweep, though, guys. We could have, one is fine. But I really don't think they would have got it done. No, Jimmy, it was really me. I had to pep talk, Spo.
Yeah, so this was really interesting, is we all should have known around here, not any sort of insider information about what was going to go on with these lineups, the fact that the Miami Heat were just going to completely flip the script on how they have operated as a basketball team up until this point to rain down threes and all of a sudden introduce that little specter of doubt into Boston Celtics fans' hearts that they really didn't need at this juncture. We'll get to all that, but how this got launched is the fact that not only that insider information, but that Claudia Bellafato actually ran into and apparently worked out with Eric Spoelstra yesterday, almost full blown.
Yep. It was
How did this happen? Walk us through what the hell happened here with Spo.
Yeah, okay, so just joined Equinox. I'm not happy about it. It is so overpriced. But cool moments like this make it worth it.
Give her the membership
it's
for
fine.
free.
Oh, man.
So I'm working out in the side room, and I look over, and I say, is that Spo? No way. They have a game today. Like, he's going to be at Equinox just chilling midday. It was. And I go over to the cable machine because it's leg day, and he's like, are you using this? Well, yeah, I'm putting the cable on the cable machine, so I am, but you can use it if you want. So he goes in, so we're both using the cable machine, and then I go over to use the hip thrust. And he said, are you using this? Yep, that's usually how it worked. You put the plate on the thing. Yeah. Can I work in with you? Man, you can do whatever you want. You're one of the best coaches of all time. Come on in here, let's do it. So we start working out together. I thought maybe he'd be throwing a few plates on there. We did 235s on both sides, and I have to say my form was better. And I wouldn't say that myself, but he admitted it. He was like, this is embarrassing. Your form's better than mine.
Form's better, and you were lifting the same weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, at least he admitted it.
He did, yeah.
But listen, Spo's up there a little bit as someone currently nursing back problems in their mid-30s.
Rob, no shame.
Maybe it's but I would say it's about the technique, and it sounds like he wasn't clearing that bar either. Apparently it focused all of his energies on this game plan then and only had so much to give in the weight room there.
Yeah, I mean, some people might say it was Tyler Hero, making or assisting 16 of their threes, but I say no, it was me. Because I said, Spo, as much respect I have for my Boston Celtics, I do think they'll win it all. The reason your team is a threat is because of you, Jimmy or not. And he was like, you're just blowing smoke. I'm like, no, for real. And what happens?
Boy, yeah, what happened? We're gonna get into that one. I like the other part of it, though. There's a basketball hoop there. And you said he and another coach went over and started watching guys hoop, and the guys saw him.
Oh, God.
And all of a sudden, they were bawling their minds out, weren't they?
Think YMCA hoops. The dudes are already trying to show up like they just came fresh, like they're walk-ons. These dudes acted like they were in a Miami Heat tryout.
Oh, they thought on the other side of this is the 10-day that's going to change their life.
Oh, my
He's like,
God.
Spo's going to see me jack up this shot and be like, I need that, dude.
That is awesome.
That's Jimmy's
I was
replacement.
going to say, Johnny, tell you the accounting firm you're not coming in next week.
I got a
the
10-day.
Miami Heat need you for this playoff run, bub.
Got a 10-day.
Sweet
All
Jesus.
those players saw then the game last night and how well Miami did. They saying, Spo, watch me. I got a shot. I got a shot.
Yeah.
See, you know what this is going to do? An uptick in people roaming the gyms around NBA game sites, because I do remember, when I was in Los Angeles doing work early on in my time at ESPN, the Mavericks were playing in town, and where we'd stay was right across from then Staples, now Crypto. And I'm in the weight room over at the JW Marriott, the gym weight room.
Yeah.
And I look and someone's knocking on the door because their key doesn't work. It's Mark Cuban. And so I'm like, all right, surely letting Mark Cuban in here Shark Tank wise is going to get me at least some percentage in the valuation of whatever happens next. No, didn't say a word to me.
You just letting somebody in willy-nilly without a key? I mean, that's
I felt like I could trust him based on that visual.
You should have on the other side been like, I have something you don't have.
What's it worth to you? I have an idea I want to run by you.
Exactly. I have a product I'd like to sell.
50%.
Yeah, exactly.
But Spo, good dude, right?
Spo, very good dude.
he's
Yeah,
good
everybody was like, oh, was it?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we were using the same machine. We were talking ball. It was very chill
Yeah.
and cool experience. I'm not too proud to say that was cool. I don't get starstruck. I've worked with a lot of athletes, but great coaches like that. It's like if I met Belichick, it would just be, it'd be
Plus,
different.
there was no you didn't expect to see him there. It was a shock.
That too. Yeah. Definitely didn't expect that.
All right, there we go. Shout out. Spo had quite a day. We will get into the
we'll
rest of
get
the
into
day
that.
that Miami he'd had there.
Shocker.
But it is also draft day around here, and we've been building up to this all week. Like Claudia said, pumped to have Mina on with us, who's out in Detroit now covering the draft for ESPN. Dianna Russini and the great job she's done at The Athletic. Some draft rumblings that came out yesterday with her. We'll sift through those and figure out what she's still buying now, just hours away from the NFL draft. Joe Alt, certainly a guy who's going to hear his name called in the top 10, although some interesting shuffling in the offensive tackle market that we can get to here. But, Dad, we were talking before the show. What a far cry this is now, where the draft has become this barnstorming phenomenon around the NFL. When back in the day, I didn't realize your draft in 1985 was on Tuesday and Wednesday, and you got the call at midnight that you were going on to your NFL dream.
Yeah, it was from 1936 to 1987. The draft was on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And I think my draft, I wasn't there. I think it was in New York. And so Tuesday and Wednesday, I got the call Wednesday night, midnight or a little before midnight. That was the 10th round. They still had 2 more rounds to go. I think at that point you got 5 minutes, but it probably took 30 seconds for some teams to pick at that point. But yeah, so it was Tuesday, Wednesday. My brother Bob, who was playing in the league at that point, brought up a bunch of beer, and we were just going to kind of hang out. We had a lot of time to hang out from the start of the draft through Tuesday night, Wednesday through the draft.
Your
all the way to
BAC
the
had to look like one of those win probability charts on ESPN.com, just going back and forth in a close game.
Luckily, I went nowhere, so I went, got a little tipsy, got a little hungover, got a little tipsy, got a little hungover. I had the ups and downs.
A lot of hairs of the dog.
Until I got that call from the Houston Oilers, you youngsters out there, the Houston Oilers, not the Tennessee Titans, that I was their 10th round selection. So it was a cool moment. It was a very, very cool moment, no doubt about that. But all these guys that are getting ready to live their dream, getting ready. And I would say we talk so much about the first round guys and all the names we talked about over and over and over and over again. But, man, it doesn't matter. You get drafted. You were an undrafted free agent. As I've always said, being first round, great, second round, that's all cool. But just getting issued shoulder pads and a helmet and getting a chance, that's the thing. So don't get bummed if you don't go where you think you're going to go, or don't go at all. If you then get to sign with the team, if you get a chance to put that uniform on, you get a chance to show something and try and make your dream come true.
That being said, I do recommend being a first rounder if you've got the ability to. It is a much better way to go about entering your NFL life than being an undrafted free agent, where when you show up to rookie minicamp in the offseason program and you see you and another guy have the exact same number, and everyone's like, well, one of y'all ain't going to be here, and have that realization that immediately it becomes the dog-eat-dog world at that next level. That becomes a lot easier when you've got that one next to your name. So for the fellas that are getting ready to experience that tonight, congratulations. It is a life-changing sum of money, even in this new world of the collective bargaining agreement, and it is an incredible opportunity to go live out the dream that we are very excited for here.
You should still be proud, though. It's just crazy to get on a roster in general, right?
Listen, it was an awesome experience.
Yes.
Like, I am tremendously thankful for it. I got to meet a lot of great people, and I got to see up close what it takes for these guys, the veterans around the NFL, the guys who have made this their livelihood, to sustain at that point, to get to look at the work up close and to see the way that these guys and some of these organizations operated was an invaluable experience from the months of like April until the beginning of September. Great time there.
Journey.
Really get to know the city in the summer. Not when you're busy with all that in-season stuff there. Waste everybody's time. So as we look ahead to the draft tonight, Claudia mentioned it. It's our last chance to get some of the hot takes out. At some point, we're going to have to revisit the take box in there, our time capsule.
In the wine box.
Yeah, God.
Why, GoJo, why you knew that was coming.
Wine box.
Every time you can't just suspend
Time
disbelief
capsule.
with us. You know,
Okay.
so for some people, this is an
There we
audio
go.
medium, and so they might not know.
All right.
They
It
get all
is a
that.
wine box, but it's our time capsule. There we go.
Well,
Here we
when
go.
I say wine box, I don't know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Take
no,
a picture of what a wine box looks like.
At this point, they will know, but we're getting some takes in there. We also want to get the last-minute draft takes out
Yeah.
here. So,
Yeah.
Claudia, we're taking a look at DraftKings Sportsbook. We've got our pick'em pool that people can enter on the DraftKings Sportsbook right now with a chance to win $1,000 in bonus bets right now. You go on there, the GoJo and Golic pick'em pool there. We've got a bunch of these draft props up that people can take a look at here. So why don't we run through some of them and get out our last bit of hot takes here before the night starts?
Yeah, so this first market we're looking at is sort of the opposite of hot takes because we're talking about the top 3 exact order, which we have been talking about. Caleb Williams minus 20,000. The reason you might be asking, why would I approach a market like this? It's to bring the juice down. So instead of betting Caleb Williams at minus 20,000 at number 1, number 2 to go to Jaden Daniels, now minus 1,000. Keep in mind that was close to even money between him and Drake May, now minus 1,000. Or number 3, Drake May minus 240. You can basically parlay those together. It was minus 175 before the show. I just looked at the updated number, minus 235.
Wow.
So people were quick to run to that. Now, again, this is just one of the markets. We have several at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And I guess I was going to ask you guys if that's a bet you would make, but now at minus 235, I don't see a ton of value. Do you think that's correct, though, to be steamed at the, do you think 1, 2, 3 is set in stone?
So I think that's the right order in my mind. Now, I would still have Drake May as the second quarter. Like, if I was picking this draft, I would be drafting Drake May second overall. I think there was a strong argument for him and Caleb Williams to have a little bit more of a back and forth at 1, but I think ultimately that willed out the right way. That being said, it's hard to ignore the steam there is around there now. If you were looking for one that's got a little bit of wild card value, the one right behind it, plus 185 of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and J.J. McCarthy, just because of how weird and noisy J.J.'s been in this entire pre-draft process, could be an interesting one, but I do think at the end of the day, we're going to see Caleb Williams go to the Bears, we're going to see Jaden Daniels go to the Washington Commanders, and then the Patriots sitting there at 3, Drake May, I think that is a coup for them.
I do as well, and a lot of talk, I think, because we're so stuck in our head, the old regime of the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick, that they're the movers and the shakers all the time.
Sure.
But this is a new regime. They need a quarterback, and I agree with you. I think this is the order that it's going to be, Drake May being third. Then, to me, it gets interesting with J.J. McCarthy because we've had so many thoughts of trading up to get him. But what if Minnesota, that's the team most talked about, moving up? What if they stay where they are and end up getting a J.J. McCarthy? Because we're so in tune now with thinking they're going to trade up. J.J. McCarthy, we go all the way back to the end of the season when the first mock started coming out. We were seeing J.J. even in the first round at like 11 and 12. You and I were both like, really? We don't really kind of see it. But now we've been so fed into that Minnesota may trade up to get him in the top 5.
It's funny. I think that this is kind of like in contract negotiations when a huge number gets leaked and then ultimately what you settle on feels like a bargain.
Right.
Where I just saw Trevor Sycamore, our buddy over at Pro Football Focus, put out his last predictive mock, had the Vikings staying at 11 and taking J.J. McCarthy. And man, how funny it would be if after all this draft cycle where we've had him built up to be, he's the top quarterback, he can be taken in the top 4. If Minnesota got him at 11, the collective feel would be, what a
steal.
bargain for them. They didn't have to trade up. When in actuality, it's probably still overdrafted relative to what we originally thought. Claudia, that does lead to the market, though, on total quarterbacks taken in the first round, which I think could be pretty interesting.
Yep. So if you can think of all of the players, what number do you get to? Is it 6 or more senior? Because if so, you can bet that at plus 180 first round.
So that's the record, just to give a little history here. 1983. It was 6 quarterbacks in the first round in order: John Elway, Todd Blackledge, Jim Kelly, Tony Eason, Ken O'Brien, Dan Marino. That was within pick 1 to 28. 6 quarterbacks went. That's the record. So I think 5 go for sure. You think
for sure?
I think 5 go for sure. I think Penix is the 5th. There is part of me. What's the number on that?
So this is 6 plus. The total quarterbacks first round over 4.5 is minus 400. So this is giving you plus money. So the 5 is expected.
All right. Okay. So I'm tempted to go 6. I'm tempted just because the quarterback can be so overvalued that someone, I think Bo Nix would be that 6th one and has a shot to go in the first round.
I think we have a better chance of getting 4 than 6. I think we have a better chance of it stopping with J.J. McCarthy than we do it getting to Bo Nix. I have so much of Will Levis from last year stuck in my head where we were all so convinced this was going to be a top 10 quarterback because of the offense he played in, because of the arm strength, because of all the physical traits and skills. And while it's different evals for the quarterbacks we're talking about, right? Bo Nix, less of the physical ability, huge body of work we talked to yesterday. Michael Penix Jr., incredible tape, big-time numbers, big-time production. Injury concerns are the risk, but I think ultimately some of those same things could be what drives a lot of this conversation and actually has teams say, hey, we can hold pat and probably get these guys back in the second round. So I think we've got a better chance of 4 than 6.
Okay, I'll say a better chance of 6 than 4.
And I will say the Patriots, I don't know what they're trying to do to us, but they posted something about Christian Gonzalez last night saying draft in a duck, which I know he went to Oregon, but now everybody's like, does that mean Bo Nix? I'm like, please tell me that doesn't mean Bo Nix. Just take Trey Bay.
Maybe trade back. Maybe they'll trade back.
I get it. Yeah, and still to get a good quarterback and other pieces. It is possible. All right, let's talk about something that you want to, GoJo.
Yes.
How many linemen will go in round 1? Over 9.5, juiced, minus 180. Do we see any value going under? So 9 or less at plus 140.
Is this all linemen or all linemen?
Round one. Yeah, all linemen.
All linemen in round 1.
This is easily over
total offensive linemen selected in round 1.
Yep.
This is total offensive linemen.
Yeah, total offensive linemen selected in round 1.
Okay, I think it's over 9.5.
I do too. Yeah. I just think this year it seems to be so many. The biggest difference this year is you've got incredibly talented guys. You've got a bunch of tackles, which is usually the sexy thing. Like, we were going back and looking at our draft classes. I wasn't drafted, so I'm technically a part of it. But like the 2013 NFL draft class, 3 of the top 4 picks were tackles. We've seen years where there's been a run. This year has got a lot of that potential to it. But there's also interior guys. We don't know. Jackson Powers Johnson could sneak in there. It seems like he's fallen a little bit. But you've got him. You've got the rise of Graham Barton, who I've seen mocked to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 20 a bunch lately. So guys like that, Guyton, Jordan Morgan, who we talked to the other day, Amarius Mims. There are so many big-time guys that I think are ultimately going to bleed up into that first round. I would go over on that. I think 10's the magic number. I do think it's going to end up being 10 offensive linemen that go in that first round. Shout out to whoever went over the mock yesterday and put in Pro Football Focus an entire 32-team NFL O-line only first round mock. That is the world I want to live in. Huh?
That's your kind of article. All right, so we all seem to agree on with the market there. Like I said, juice minus 180 to the over. So what about J.J. McCarthy? We talked about him a little bit. To be selected by which team is a market at DraftKings Sportsbook? The Vikings, the favorite at plus 150, but the Patriots are plus 160. Only a 10 cents difference, which means the books don't really know. Nobody really knows until draft day, which is today. So, Senior, what do you think? McCarthy to the Patriots, or do you see it being a Vikings?
No, I don't see him to the Patriots. To me, it's going to be the Vikings, but where do they get him? Because you sit there and look at the top 3, they need quarterbacks. If the Patriots take Drake May, Cardinals don't need a quarterback, Chargers don't, and I'm not putting trades in there. You just look at the next group. They don't need a quarterback. There's rumblings of the Giants, but they're not taking a quarterback at 6. Tennessee doesn't need one. Atlanta doesn't need one. Chicago will have drafted Caleb Williams. The Jets don't need one. So Minnesota, their only fear would be, does someone jump ahead of them who wants a quarterback to grab J.J. McCarthy? Or do they say, you know what, we're going to stand pat here because we feel we can get him here? Or are we looking over our shoulder and that object is closer than it really seems, that there's a team that might jump us to get J.J. McCarthy?
I think getting plus money on the Vikings is a pretty big win. We've talked about the quarterback order being something that, the markets we looked at before, a lot of juice their way on that. I think getting plus money on the Vikings is a pretty big win at plus 150. It just seems like there's been too much smoke for there not to be fire. And one way or another, it seems like the Vikings are a desperate enough team, given their station right now in the NFC North, where they not only make this move, but I think have to make this move. We've talked about the Raiders, plus 1,500 there, could be desperate in the quarterback market. Also the Broncos at plus 340, but I think the Vikings have the capital to make this work no matter what.
Quick question backing off of that. J.J. McCarthy's plus 380 to go number 4. Do you see any scenario where somebody trades up to get him at 4? Marvin Harrison Jr. is the favorite at 4.
Yeah, I think that's a very realistic possibility, but more realistic possibility is that beef remains high on the menu. We'll talk to some of the best in Joe Alt next. Draft day finally here,
Yep.
and excited to talk to a guy whose name's going to come off the board very early. A guy that we are very familiar with, got to watch every snap of his career at Notre Dame, former All-American offensive tackle. Joe Alt, kind enough to join us now. We're excited to hear about his work with Tide along with P&G and Meyer as he gets set for draft night. But Joe, man, congratulations on a stellar college career. What's this been like? You play one of the most anonymous positions in sport, an offensive line. You've been the center of attention now leading up this entire draft cycle. So how has that been for you being out in the light as an offensive lineman?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's nice. I'm not going to say I don't like it. It is a little weird when you're sitting down at Applebee's with your girlfriend, you see your face on the TV, you're like, that's a little weird. But, it's been super exciting. The draft process for me has been, very easy, and I've been able to stay in kind of my routine. So I've been pretty grateful for how it's gone so far.
You're a guy that makes me feel old because I played against your father when he was with the Chiefs and I was with the Eagles. But also, is there that little bit of competition, which, by the way, you're going to blow away. He was a first-round 21st pick. You're going to go well before that. So is there going to be a little smack talk when you get picked before he did?
I wish I could give him some smack talk, but I'm just so grateful for my father and what he's done for me, what he's taught for me. I mean, I wouldn't be in the spot I am without him. So, no, I won't be giving him any smack talk. It'll just be all, gratitude and appreciation for what he's done for me.
I hear that? I appreciate
you hear that.
All right, so you're putting me in a really bad position right now, Joe, because I've spent an entire life, and I wanted to ask you, I obviously, like you, was fortunate to have my dad as an NFL player, played at Notre Dame where I wanted to go, and every step along the way, he's trying to interject his advice and trying to offer. Is your dad someone that you've gone to for advice, or has he been there every step of the way just trying to tell you how to do this stuff?
There's a little bit of both. They're naturally going to be both. Sometimes you don't want to hear it. There's some comments there. I think there's a couple games this year I've walked down. He goes, "You got to go back to run blocking school 101." I'm like, wow, I didn't think it was that bad in the game. But, overall, I'm always really appreciative of what he's done for me.
All I got to say is both of you're going to understand one day when you have kids of your own, you're going to get it. But away from that, Joe, talk about this process for you, how it changes from football to preparing and doing all these non-football things and now getting back to football again. How has this process gone for you?
Yeah, so I was able to do it here in Minnesota where I'm from, which was super great for me because I just kind of had a routine built in where I felt comfortable. I was sleeping in my childhood bed and things like that. But we were able to really continue to focus on football, which was great for me. I was spending about 2.5 hours doing the running, lifting stuff, so preparing for the 225 test, preparing for the 40, the pro agility, the L drill. But then I also got an hour of just straight football, what I needed to improve on from last year. And gave a lot of credit and really appreciative of the guys I trained with, Bill Welly and Alex Boone. It was a great process for me, and I felt like I really made the most of it.
What have you focused on in this process? I know sitting out here as, the Notre Dame guy in the media, I get asked about you a lot, and people have always come and they're like, their questions about, is he the most violent hand striker in the world, or things like that. When you hear these kind of criticisms, what do you look at and think people are getting wrong, and what have you actually looked at and said, yeah, these are areas I want to improve on?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I always want to improve my strike. I think being able to have a very physical and violent strike without getting out of position is one of the best trait to have as an offensive lineman. One of those things that I kind of disagree with is people think I'm not a very aggressive player. I might be a timid player, but I have, very severe controlled aggression. It's when that whistle, the snap is had and before the whistle, it is full throttle as hard as I can. I'm trying to, beat my man and not let him get the job done. I'm pretty aggressive when I'm playing, but the thing I want to improve on is always my strike.
I know when Mike was at Notre Dame, he went through multiple O-line coaches. You did the same thing as well. How was that process, learning from different O-line coaches?
Yeah, obviously you got to get used to change. It's a little tough. There's the 2-week window I always thought where it's kind of getting used to how he coaches, what his style is. But then from there, things that I was able to take from 3 different coaches and their different coaching styles and be able to kind of, add to my mental game moving forward. So whatever kind of coach I get, at least I have somewhat of an experience with a certain kind of offensive line coach.
It's one of the things you guys also have in common. Mike was coached by Harry Hiestand as well, and I think he's one of the best O-line coaches I've ever seen. But did he scare you at times?
Yeah. It was kind of like this. There's this kind of soft way getting into it where it was when he showed up, we were in, off season, the winter off season. You're kind of get to meet him. You can have a couple of meetings, but there's nothing really to watch yet because he can't really yell at you. And then it was the first spring ball practice. You come in, you're like, okay, this is a bit different than what I'm used to. We're going to have to take a minute to kind of adapt to what I'm getting yelled at for. But, like you said, I think he's one of the best out there and really helped me improve my game.
Who are some of the guys that you watched that you said, wow, that's a guy, I want to get to that league, and this is a guy, boy, I love watching play?
Yeah, I think the first guy is always Joe Thomas. I think what he's able to do at the offensive tackle position is very, very special. And then more recently, I really began to watch Lane Johnson, and he's a freak of nature and athletic ability. So I don't really watch how he does things. It's more his mental approach to the game. So I think those are two guys that I've really kind of admired and watched their game.
Usually, guys in your position who are consensus All-Americans, what you've done over on the left side, it doesn't come up as much, the idea of changing positions, but I know there are some teams, if the Los Angeles Chargers were to be in the mix there, the right tackle spot's open there. You did some work on the right side doing tackle over stuff, the NC State game, the Ohio State game this last year. Is that something you've continued to work on now in the lead up to the NFL draft? Where would you be at on the notion of playing over on the right-hand side versus the left-hand side where you've called home?
Yeah. Obviously, I'm more comfortable at left. I've had in-game snaps there. I played a lot there, and that's where I'm more comfortable naturally. But I've also done a lot of preparation for right tackle in case that is the next opportunity at the next level. So I've taken the time to make sure I can get some more comfortability and more reps on the right side, so I'm available to go there if that's where the team needs me to be.
And what's the biggest difference? I always try and explain to people, that's not an easy process to try and go through, to try and switch everything you do there. So how can you kind of emphasize just how difficult that transition is for people that just look at it and think, oh, you're just left tackle, right tackle, what's the big deal?
Yeah, the thing for me that was the biggest is just how you have a different way your body works. Like my body naturally sits into my right side, that's where I push from, and my left side is my catch leg. And now you're flipping that completely. So naturally, as you're setting, your body kind of wants to drip to that stronger push leg, but now that's the outside leg. You don't want to right on the outside foot. So it's little things like that where you don't really see it unless you film yourself and you catch yourself like, whoa, my body's shifted over when it should be here. And little things like that are things that I've noticed and tried to work on.
So, Joe, we know you've got a lot going on in the lead up to the draft, but you're here on behalf of some of your work that you're doing with Tide, P&G, and Meyer. What can you tell us about what you got going on with them heading into draft night and this life-changing day for you?
Yeah, with the new team and the new city coming up, I partner with Meyer and P&G because they have the essentials I need. I'm ready for really truly ready for anything. And I'd always grown up being a Tide kid. My mom always, I remember sitting on top of the laundry machine, and I'd walk in there, and there's the Tide ready to go, and I'd take my sweaty basketball jersey or my sweaty football gear and drop it there, and I'd get it back the next day, and it was always ready to go. So that's something that's important to me. And then with Meyer, obviously being a Notre Dame kid, there's a Meyer right down the road. So I attended there, got my groceries from there. So a little discount for all my Myers fans like me, who I was. You can use M-Perks and save $15 on purchase of $50 or more of P&G products. So that's kind of why I chose to do this and partner with them, because it's something that I've always used and have a special place in my heart for.
Good for you, doing a great job for them. I'm sure that will continue. And you mentioned your mom. We talked about your dad. So let's talk about draft day. You mentioned Joe Thomas. Unless you're going out fishing like Joe Thomas did that day, if you are, cool. If you're not, what are you going to be doing on draft day?
Yeah, originally I didn't even know Joe Thomas did that, but that was my plan. I literally wanted to be sitting on the dock with my dad, putting a line in. I kind of got vetoed a little bit by my mom. She said, that's a little bit, too out there. And I was like, all right, Mom. So we're doing a vineyard / bar, like 10 minutes from my house, where I can have, all the family members who have supported me and are super close to me, my close family and friends there. And it should be a great night. And just kind of the biggest thing for me is just showing my gratitude to those who have helped me become the person and player I am today and have them close to me.
There's going to be great joy in that day, but will there be a little bit of relief that this process is over and you can get back to playing football?
Definitely. I think the thing for me that I really am looking forward to is just waiting period being over. I can now begin to really dive into something, dive into a new playbook, dive into a coaching style, what that coach wants me to do, how they want me to, basic things, just so I can get a little feel for, what this next summer is going to look like and really begin to put my work with a specific intention in mind. Is what I'm most excited for.
Well, I know whatever fan base hears your name called is going to be very excited to see all of that on display for their team. Joe, we appreciate the time, man. It's been a ton of fun watching your career at Notre Dame. We appreciate everything you did for the university, man. Best of luck. We're rooting for you, and enjoy draft night, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
All right, welcome back. Our thanks to our buddy Joe Alt for stopping by here. And Dad, he's becoming a really interesting player in this draft. Looking around and reading between the betting markets and a lot of the mock drafts we're seeing this morning, a guy that for so long seemed to be a lock for the first tackle off the board now is a little bit healthy competition.
So let me ask you about this because, you know, we sit there and talk about if you go from the left side to the right side or right side to the left side, I don't think people really understand how difficult that can be. You certainly can do it. And you even heard Joe say he's been working on both sides. And during his career, he's played a little bit on the right in some of the over situations. So some of the talk now, because if he does go to the Chargers, they have Rashawn Slater at left tackle.
Yeah.
So Joe would probably be on the right side. J.C. Latham from Alabama was a right tackle, played right tackle. So we're starting to hear his name possibly with the Chargers. Is that something you would do because he has right tackle experience, or would you trust Joe could make that switch and he's the better lineman?
I would trust Joe personally. I just would take the best player available. And we talked to Duke Manyweather about this the other day, who trains these guys, gets them ready for the next level, and trains the guys that are in the pros. And he said it's on an individual basis, and he believes that a guy like Joe has the ability to make that sort of transition. But I can understand for some teams, especially ones like the Chargers, who I'm sure are looking for him to hit the ground running early on, having a guy you can put over there. And listen, J.C. Latham as a player is a guy, Lance Zierlein, who does a great job covering the draft, has had J.C. Latham as his top tackle for a lot of this draft process. So there's some people that just think, hey, with the size, the lower body mass that he has, certainly coming from a program like Alabama, there's a lot to like there. I would still pick Joe Alt with that pick if I'm going to go offensive line as the Chargers at 5. But J.C. Latham, this smoke and this team has kind of been building for a while, so not surprised to see he's the betting favorite now to go at 5.
Yeah, because a lot of these linemen, they especially get picked in the first round, are going to be plug and play, so they want them to be ready to go.
And it is a difficult transition. When we hear Joe talk about it, you're having to rewire everything, how you organize your weight pre-snap, how you think. You have to start thinking about doing stuff again. And for a guy who's been on the left side his whole career like that, you've got all that stuff down, most of that second nature. It's like I talked about as a center, snapping the football. You want to make that something you don't think about. Most of those movements, you rep them so much in an unnatural position like offensive line, so it becomes second nature, so that when you get into these game situations, you're worried about, all right, how do we see the defense, how do we adjust to that, not just how do I get out of my stance the most efficiently to shift my weight from one side to the other, all these things that you've got to retrain when you're going from left to right or inside to out.
All right, we're just hours away from finding that out, but Claudia, last night, your workout partners team really got it going right here in against your team.
I can't say I'm surprised. She seemed pretty cool, calm, and collected, even though everybody came up saying, we hope you lose. But as I said, you can't doubt Spo. And it's funny because I think coaching had a lot to do with this. They saw what worked for the Celtics, and it was jacking up threes, hitting the majority of them, and they took note and did exactly that. They hit over 53% from the arc. A lot of that had to do because of Tyler Hero. He either made or assisted 16 of those threes. He had 24 and 14 assists. Celtics actually outscored them in the paint, so that's where they showed up, 46-26. But when you hit double the threes, you're likely going to win the game. Porzingis didn't have much of a play in this game either, which hurt them. So, yeah, he took one. They go back home now for 2. As you always say, Senior, you try to get one on the road. Yep. That's the goal, and that's what they did. At the beginning of the series, I said, it's a sweep or nothing. Anything else would be disappointing. That's not what we're getting. I'll take it, gentlemen.
So is this a nervy thing for you Celtic fans? Because this is what we talked about,
this
right?
Goes to Chris
best record, get into playoffs, and then...
Well, that is the issue because we saw this through the regular season, this season, and last season, failing to teams that they should be dominating.
Right.
And I know that Tyler Hero is going to have games like that. I said that at the beginning of this tournament. That is sort of the dangerous factor. You have other guys that you don't expect. They don't have a ton of depth, but they do have guys who can go off. It doesn't worry me too much, though, because you just tighten up the defense. I don't know if Tyler Hero is going to go off and have a game like that again. Jimmy not being there is just...
Yeah, so, still no Jimmy Butler.
To your point about Tyler Hero, scored 11 points on 13 shots in the opener, had 24 points on 13 shots, including 6 threes and 14 assists. The 14 assists was the outlier.
Yes.
Second most in a game for him in his career, obviously that. But this Miami team, they're a Bogart. Like, I don't know how many Harry Potter fans we have here, but shape-shifting monster who becomes your worst fear anytime you open the door. They are able to morph into whatever they need to be. Like that turnaround, they went from attempting a 38% of their points came from three in the first game.
Right.
62% of their points came from three.
It's an NBA playoff record.
An NBA playoff record. So the fact that in one game they could say, you know what, we're a little bit undermanned right now. The way Boston has played us, giving us those shots on the outside, we just got to let them fly. To have a team that mentally can respond like that is a testament to Eric Spoelstra and the environment they've built. Like all that Heat culture stuff, I'm sure the Levitard show is famous. I'm sure the local hour this morning, Jeremy Taché had to be in his glory. There is no doubt. But the culture is, Dad, having players believe, hey, we're just going to go out here and let it fly. You have nothing to lose in this position. And so now the thing I do worry about, Claudia and Dad, for going out beyond this is, how much do you overcorrect now if you're Boston? Like, how much do you start? Because the Heat played them out at the three-point line and said, we're going to play you off that. We're going to try and get you to drive and take two and win the math problem. How much do you adjust if you're the Boston Celtics, where you say, hey, do we play out a little bit further than we were before? Do we over-index for that, knowing that's not how the Miami Heat want to live, and risk it happening again?
See, I don't, because I don't know if we have odds on this type of thing, in your world, Claudia, of can they do this? They're not doing this again. Miami's not hitting 62% from threes again. They're not doing that again.
No, but my point is they don't have to do that.
No. That's why if I'm Boston, I'm not all of a sudden just guarding the perimeter and saying I'm stopping them from doing it.
Oh, no.
I'm going to see how they go, see if they're hitting their shots again, because as I said, they broke their own team record in the playoffs, which in 2021 they hit 20 against, I think it was the Bucks in the first round. They're not going to hit this many threes again.
I get that they're not going to, but Dad, this is like when an offense puts a reverse on tape or puts a trick play in based off the formation they use all the time. Now you at least have to respect it. Because while I am comfortable in saying they're not going to score 62% of their points from three again and set another franchise postseason record in this series. But now all of a sudden, if they hit a few and they have another stretch like they had in the third quarter of this game, and you're the Boston Celtics, who already have a little bit of the worries when it comes to your identity at the end of games, now how are you responding defensively in the area that's supposed to be this part that you have locked down?
The trend more that I look at and say, well, maybe we should have seen this coming, is the fact that Spoelstra is now 10-3 on games after a game one loss. Coming back and winning game two. The only one with a better winning percentage is Frank Vogel at 8-2. So Spo is used to doing this.
Yeah. To answer your question too, I guess to both of you on if they're going to do it again, I'm looking back at that game one log, and they actually dominated in the paint. The Heat did, and that was a big game for Adebayo. So that's where the fear comes from. And can they do it again? Can they get another win going back home?
And
if they can take a little bit from the three-point and take a little bit from what they did in game one and have the combination, and KP doesn't show up for the Celtics and Tatum doesn't show up as he should, then yeah, they're going to get another win.
I was going to say, I could see the Heat. I still think Boston wins this series. I could see the Heat winning another game just because the biggest surprise, and you mentioned it through the first couple of games, has been Kristaps. Like the first game, he shot so well from three, it didn't really matter. But you quietly saw Bam Adebayo kind of own the paint. And in this second game, Bam Adebayo from like 12 feet and in was money with a lot of floaters and touch shots there. But him rebounding, they got KP into some foul trouble there. And so all of this adding up to Bam showing up in a way inside, that was supposed to be the difference, right? Kristaps' game and his whole thing this offseason was, hey, I'm not just going to be the unicorn on the outside. I'm going to give Boston post touches in a way that helps flip what people would normally prepared for with that.
We're spending most of our time on that game. We'll give the other game just a minute of love. But it was a blowout, a 32-point win for Oklahoma City. They hold on to home court as it goes now to New Orleans. Still no Zion Williamson. Your second leading scorer still doesn't get it done in this game. And Brandon Ingram, he's held, I think, 10 points, I think it was, in that area there. Chet Holmgren, he goes 5 of 5 from threes in the first quarter, ends up with 26.7 rebounds. And SGA is playing fantastic.
I want to give some love to that Oklahoma City crowd, because while everyone's going to focus on the shots of Boston fans leaving with a minute left at the end of this game here, that Oklahoma City crowd, a full-blown whiteout in there, was an absolute roar from the opening tip all the way through. And Dad, this team, the crowd, none of them ever let their foot off the gas in this game. It was almost a blowout from the jump here. Really complete, fun, young team, and exciting one to watch as the postseason rolls along for them. Coming up next, though, we roll along to the NFL, and our draft preview heads to the north, where some money is coming out.
Made some moves to secure two of their best current players ahead of adding new ones tonight. They agreed to a 4-year, $120 million extension with wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown and a 4-year, $112 million deal with offensive tackle Penei Sewell. St. Brown's contract includes $77 million guaranteed, the most guaranteed money for a wide receiver in a single contract in NFL history. Sewell's contract, $85 million guaranteed, the most for an O-lineman. So these dudes getting paid ahead of the season, GoJo.
Penei Sewell is 23 years old.
I mean,
crazy.
That, like, we've talked about some of the young guys coming out in this draft. The fact that he is 23 years old and is already an accomplished all-pro caliber player and they got to invest in like this, that guy's going to make so much money in his career. And right now, Dad is on gold jacket trend and shows no signs of slowing down.
A couple days ago, you did a radio hit, and I did one yesterday on the same station. And just to rip you as an O-lineman and me a D-lineman, I gave the O-line are the worst athletes on the field, blah, 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 blah. O-linemen, the athletic ability of them over the years, it has really been impressive. And this guy is right about at the top of the heap with his athletic ability.
Prime Trent Williams has probably been one of the best modern O-line athletes. We talked with Joe Alt about, Lane Johnson in Philadelphia, too. I'd put Penei up at his size against anyone. That is one of the most fluid movers and insane body types I have ever seen. So to lock him down for the duration there, listen, I'm not going to go back and totally re-legislate the draft class he was a part of, but we had that conversation about him versus Jamar Chase and the meme that was out there. I'm just saying the Lions decided to pay him first. I don't know if that makes him the winner or not, but it seems like picking, and again, it's all about skill sets and body types. There are not a lot of him walking the face of the earth right now. Jamar Chase is a special player. You can find a lot more of those body types out there in the world. There are not a lot of 6'5", 6'6", 330-plus pound guys who move like a deer like that, who also give you receiver touches, oh, by the way, as we've seen in that offense. So I don't want to say that this is a total win for the beef community, but, man, it feels like we can call the fight now. That's all I'm saying.
I'm with you. They did what they needed to do. They're also a team, real quick, I know we're going to talk about them, hung on to their coordinators.
Yes,
They
huge.
were head coaching candidates, so this is a team primed to make the next jump.
The meme where you can have O-lineman throwing to anybody there, not just anybody. Amon-Ra St. Brown, highly paid, well-deserved, absolute beef receiver, big O-line vibes for him. And so they are the class of this NFC North, Claudia, as we look ahead at the draft needs here for everyone else trying to play catch-up with the Lions right now, which is a funny thing to say.
Yeah, if you're looking at the other needs too, cornerback, receiver, edge, safety, tight ends on there. But if you guys are looking at the class heading into tonight, anybody that really stands out for you, Senior?
I think for the Lions right here, I mean, looking for them, we'll go reverse order on this as we look at the North. They're the last pick, the 29th pick out of this division. And, Dad, they did lose one of the sneaky ones this offseason we talked about. O-line is the star of the show for Detroit. It's the way Dan Campbell's built that program. Jonah Jackson has been, I think, one of the most underrated players in the NFL the last few years. On a line that's got other stars, he was never going to be the first name, but losing out on him, sneaky a big one now. So at the end of that first round, I don't know if you'd go O-line there. Some people have them mock defense, still an area that I think opposite a guy, like your former top overall pick, you want to still help out.
They picked up Zeitler, though.
They did pick up Zeitler, which is a big one.
To replace Jonah Jackson. Listen, this was a team that was 27th in pass defense, 23rd in sacks. I think they had 41, but they were 23rd in the league. I think they're going to go either edge rusher, maybe a Chop Robinson, or a cornerback. Cornerback is going to be not as deep as it's been, as when we talked about it in last year's draft. But I think it will be on the defensive side, and I think it'll be one of those positions.
Yeah, smart to keep investing on that side of the ball there. You've made some strides, especially in the front seven. Now you got to pair it on the back end there as well. So I think they'll go defense there. As we take a look and start with the Bears, the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams is obviously a foregone conclusion at this point in most people's mind. We've talked about this team has done a good job of building up their roster over the last couple of years to get it into a much better place. Dad, that 9th pick overall, I think also most people look at that and assume, hey, that's probably should be wide receiver. Continue to add weapons around Caleb Williams.
I think you're going to get one of the top three, right? Between Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. They may possibly be gone by then.
I can say, so I mean, like you game it out. Arizona at 4, probably going to take the best of that group there. Most of the mocks have Malik Neighbors going at 6 overall to the Giants. And then it's really, can you get through Tennessee, who, listen, you could argue still, I mean, they picked up wide receiver this offseason there. You still had DeAndre Hopkins as a holdover from last year. I doubt they're going to do it at Atlanta. There's no way they go offensive skill again in the top 10. They're chock full of it there. So you'd have a decent chance of having the 3rd. And man, if Rome Odunze falls to them, Chicago already feels like a team that's on the precipice of making that Houston Texans-like jump from last year. You throw Rome into the mix with Caleb, and that's a really potent cocktail.
I agree.
So the Vikings, I think, in most people's estimation, the most interesting team in this first round in terms of what they could do as a mover. That team everyone's had trading up. They've got the 11th pick and the 23rd pick overall in this draft. And we know this conversation starts with quarterback, Dad. Do you ultimately think there's any way they walk out of the first round without a quarterback?
They're not going into the season with Sam Darnold as a starter.
Yeah.
Or if he is, it's a bridge. But they're a team, I think, that needs to get a quarterback and insert him in day one. Right? And just say, this is now your team. Because Sam Darnold got his second life. He was backing up Purdy out in San Francisco. Now going to Minnesota. I think that's going to be his lot, to be the backup Sam Darnold on the teams eventually if he goes to, with occasionally being that guy counted on to keep your team's head above water. I think they're going to have to go quarterback and insert that quarterback and give him the job right away.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it. There were mock drafts where, hey, we saw maybe they could wait at 11 and get J.J. McCarthy. I just think with Denver and Vegas lurking there, they're not going to be able to take that risk.
That's the risk, right? That's the roll of the dice.
Right, and I just don't think at that position you can take that, given where they're at right now, which is still have a chance to be competitive in in the North. Like, it looks like a division that belongs to Detroit and Green Bay after last year. But if you're the Vikings, Justin Jefferson's contract hanging in the balance there, I don't think you can afford to take a massive step back. Because, man, if you were able to hold on to both these picks and you're at the end of that round, we know you sort of went wife swap at pass rusher. With the way that you had Danielle Hunter out, but you bring in Jonathan Greenard from Houston, and you guys basically swap partners there. But, man, if you could sit at that edge and add another edge rusher to that defense, that'd be great in that 23 pick range for one of those guys in this class to fall down.
They still need help on defense. I just mentioned, was the Packers, who, as far as sacks, the Lions. The Lions at 41 sacks. Minnesota only had 2 more than that. So it's not like they were a sack-happy machine either. So they need still some help on that D-line too. So I think at that position they go for that edge as well.
Yeah, they do. I just don't think they're going to have that 23rd pick to work with. I think they're going to have to package that up.
If they're going to move up, you're right.
Because I just don't think they're going to be able to sit at 11, as great as that would be for them, and walk out of this with the quarterback that they want, which is likely going to be J.J. McCarthy at this point. Everything we've seen is the lead up. Stranger things have happened on draft night, but at this point it does seem like that's where we're settling. The Packers at 25 overall becomes really interesting here. It seems like corner or offensive line, probably an area they go here. This has been an offensive line with a lot of versatile parts. They lose John Runyon this offseason that had been a part of that group as well. And so some people look at Tyler Guyton is a prospect I've had trouble mocking in the first round of my own. But I think in this system, in these Shanahan-McVay guys with a big-time athlete like that, in a scheme that wants to get you on the move, get you running, use those skills, I think the scheme at Oklahoma didn't necessarily favor Guyton's gifts. I think this could be a really interesting landing spot if he makes it to 25.
As you mentioned, they lose Runyon, they lose Josh Nijman, another old lineman. Obviously, Aaron Jones gone, but they did pick up Josh Jacobs from the Raiders. So this is a little toward the end of the round. You have talked about especially a lot of the top O linemen. Here you mentioned Tyler Guyton, another guy, Amarius Mims. So what about him? Is he a fit there? These are some of the lineman names that are going down lower in the first round of how you differentiate between them.
Yeah, Amarius Mims, of the guys towards the back half of the O-line draft that are tools-based and projections, because Amarius Mims just hasn't played a lot of football, came into this year without a lot of starts, got injured early on. He's the one I feel most.
Come there, right?
He's the one. There's not many 340 guys that have the tapered V weight, but also technically are a little bit further along than most. I've said he's like this year's O-line Anthony Richardson, where the bones are there, he just needs more reps. He's not just a toolsy guy. Technique-wise, I don't think he's all that far off. So we're excited to talk about even more beef. Congratulations to Penei Sewell on the payday.
Yeah.
The NFC North going to be one of the most entertaining divisions in football this next season. But coming up next, we talk to one of the most entertaining people in football. ESPN's Mina stops by to look ahead at round 1 of the draft. Next on GoJo and Golic. Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and with the draft now just hours away, it's time for one last round of bold predictions and analysis. To help us out with that, we bring in our friend, ESPN NFL analyst and host of the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny podcast, Mina Kimes, with us here now. How you doing, bud?
As well as anyone can be doing, head of the most exciting. I think this is the most exciting night of the year. I really do.
Are you still excited? Because I know the draft season is long and it is full of takes. You've been doing an incredible series of mock drafts with so many great analysts in the lead up here, so that hasn't diminished any of the excitement for you.
No, if anything, it's increased it because I've really tried to get guests on that series on YouTube with like really divergent opinions. So on one hand, you had a lot of folks kind of going with the consensus of Caleb first, then it's probably going to be Daniels, then May in the draft. We'll see. But I had Chris Sims, who was really low on Drake May. Nate Tice, who was really high on him. In fact, he's his favorite quarterback. I had Paul Feinbaum, who was absolute chaos. So it's been fun to see how everybody feels about these quarterbacks.
All right, so let's jump in there because do we learn from history at all? And the history doesn't go back too far. We're predicting 5 quarterbacks in this first round. All the way back, Mina, in 2021, just years and years ago, we had 5 quarterbacks taken. To this day, 4 are no longer with their original team. Only 1, Trevor Lawrence, is with his team. Does the NFL learn anything, or is the continued reach for a quarterback going to continue forever?
Well, I hear you, but I just did a pod with Bill Barnwell revisiting the 2018 draft, which had Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And so the promise of finding one of those guys is what makes you keep swinging. The hit rate is lower than some other position. I think it's probably, certainly with 2021 factored in lower, it's lower than a lot of positions like wide receiver, for example. It's harder to find your answer at quarterback. But because if you do find him, it's so valuable, completely changes the course of history for your team, your franchise. You got to keep trying. I think the lesson to be learned is not don't draft a quarterback, but rather to look at the failures of those teams in evaluating certain quarterbacks, which we could talk about, and then putting them in the right situations, hiring the right coaches, that sort of things. And that's what makes a team like New England so fascinating, right? Because many people, myself included, don't view that as a good situation for a quarterback, which raises questions about whether they would be smart to trade down and improve the offense around them. I hear that. However, saying that, you don't know when they're going to get another shot at a guy like, the top 3. So it makes it very difficult.
Ultimately, Mina, how many quarterbacks do you think end up going in this first round outside of those top 3?
I think 4. I am not really buying the expectation that Penix or Nix go in the first round. I do think McCarthy goes in the first round, but and I'm a Washington Huskies fan. I love Michael Penix. He's responsible for the greatest college football season of my lifetime. But I do think that the concerns about his health and then the age and some reasonable dings on accuracy over the course of the season will put off certain teams. He's been linked a lot with the Raiders. I do not see him going at 13. We'll see if I'm wrong. So the question then will be whether or not they're incentivized to trade up in the draft to go get him. They don't have a lot of draft capital to do so, though.
So that's my thought, Mina. I actually think he could end up being the best quarterback out of this draft, but you do have to cross your fingers because of the injuries. I completely understand that. What about the possibility of not going up to get him, but going back deeper later in the first round to get him? I know you'll lose out on getting somebody at that spot, but still get your quarterback while picking up some assets.
That I think actually makes more sense for the Raiders because of their draft picks. I think the question is kind of just how far you'd have to go because you're not really competing with any teams at the end, but it would be a question of whether Denver, which also, Denver doesn't have a second round pick, whether or not they have the flexibility or interest in moving around the board. And then the Rams are another team. That doesn't really make sense to me, but they've been linked with Penix as well. That doesn't make sense because my feeling about Michael Penix is if you draft him, he should play immediately. He is not the kind of quarterback you sit for years, in part because of his age. Yeah. He's 24. I'm like, this Social Security, just around the corner from Michael Penix. I mean, that's the draft, right? But yeah, I think it's going to be, it's a lot of chicken with who are you actually competing with. How much would you have to give up? What would you gain in moving back? But I do think that would make sense for Las Vegas.
Mina, we've talked in this draft cycle so much about the quarterbacks, and really I think a lot of the prime position players, whether it's at wide receiver or offensive line, everyone's kind of become well acquainted with a lot of the names that have been up top for a while. Is there a prospect that you've seen as the biggest riser in this draft cycle, someone whose stock, maybe outside of the quarterbacks, has risen the most in the months since we finished college football season?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I just had Matt Miller on my pod, and he said something that I've been hearing from a few people, which is that teams really love Byron Murphy Jr., the defensive tackle out of Texas. And Matt said he could be the first defensive player, which stunned me because I think everybody's been assuming, myself included, for a while that Atlanta is likely to stick at 8 and take Dallas Turner or trade down. And then a team would come up and get a receiver, probably Roma Dunze. But that's a player where, I get it. When I watch him, I feel like his tape is just so easy to translate to the NFL. It's so easy to imagine him slotting into a team with the 4-3 that needs a truly disruptive 3 tech. I mean, it's funny because Atlanta's assumed to take an edge rusher, but He does remind you of Grady Jarrett, who's on their team when you watch him, and I think for a good reason. It's a lofty comparison, no doubt, but I do see a lot of Jarrett in not just his size profile, but the way he uses his hands, how quick he is at the line of scrimmage, his athleticism. So that's a player I wouldn't be surprised if he goes pretty early.
All right, I'm going to really qualify this question, Mina.
Boy.
Take out the quarterbacks,
okay,
and take out Marvin Harrison Jr. 3 years from now, which player do you think will have the most impact in the league?
I think Roma Dunze is going to be a star. All year I was saying, actually, maybe you could call him a riser too, because I think I felt some way about him watching him at UW, and then it was kind of interesting to see everybody, like people like Daniel Jeremiah, who thinks he's the best receiver in the draft, sort of echo how I felt. So what I said about him all year in college is I could not, watching his game. And I, to be honest, you could say this about Harrison Jr. too, but just talking about Dunze, I can't imagine a world in which he's not good in the NFL. No prospect is bust proof. The history is littered with examples of guys who everybody thought were sure things. But when you watch him, he is so good at all of the things it takes to play receiver at the highest level, the little things, the little nuances in his releases, how he sets up defenders, the way he uses his hands after the catch. I think he's underrated. He has the athleticism, the production, the size. He has everything, the mental makeup from all accounts. He's a phenomenal character guy. I would be stunned if he is not good.
Yeah, that seems to be blue chip stock that you have the chance to buy there. And he's one, as you go through the draft process, I always think it's interesting, Mina, we're all trying to project guys to the next level. Like you said, the things that seem easy to replicate on the NFL level that are familiar based off what we've seen be successful there. And then there's also the people that you just flat out like watching. Roma Dunze, for me, was one of those guys. Very aesthetically pleasing game. I've talked about Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State being one of my favorite guys. Do you have someone whose tape has been like a breath of fresh air for you? Like when you turn this on, you're actually just legitimately excited to watch this player? I mean,
Laitu Latu's tape is like snuff film, if you like, pass rushing. It's ridiculous, guys. What he did to the Pac-12 should be illegal in 50 states. Like it is, I mean, good God, Arizona, USC, I've said this before, but I actually wasn't intending to watch him. I start with the quarterbacks right after the Super Bowl. I put on USC. I'm watching Caleb Williams. I'm liking it. I get to UCLA, and I had to hit pause and just text everybody I knew who likes pass rushers. And I was just like, have you guys like watched this Latu? I mean, I watched him, watching in real time, but oh my God, on tape, he's unreal. I think he is about as polished as a pass rushing prospect as we've seen in recent years. And he's just, so many of the pass rushers taken over the last few years, this isn't new, are projections. You think of a guy like, Trayvon Walker with Jacksonville, where the production's not quite there in college. I think Anderson Jr. is different, where the production really matched the athleticism. But there's been a lot of guys who are just like athletes, and it's like they'll figure it out. They'll develop, a second move and a counter when they get to the NFL. And then you turn on Latu's tape, and it's already there. It's unbelievable. It's so fun to just pause, watch, see, and we'll see where he goes. I think that's one of the bigger question marks in the first round, whether or not the medicals and maybe some size questions about arm length and whatever put some teams off of him. But I feel like if he goes below 15, some team is going to get a real steal.
So last year, Houston Texans had a first-time head coach, first-time play caller, first-time quarterback, first round also, first-time defensive end, edge rusher. And they go to the playoffs and win a game. Because of that, is there going to be unwarranted pressure and undue pressure on first-year head coaches of bad teams put on by their owners saying, see, they did it, why can't we?
I don't think there should be pressure on first-year head coaches. I think there should be pressures on guys like Adam Peters at Washington, the first-year GM, because you see, the Houston Texans nailed it in terms of their evaluation of CJ Stroud. So you've got, 3 teams in the top 3 this year taking quarterbacks, most likely, and potentially the Minnesota Vikings as well. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah to me is under one of the GMs under a ton of pressure. But all of these guys, you see what CJ Stroud did in Texas, and I think all of them are under immense pressure to find the next CJ Stroud. But that to me is more about the front office than the coaching staffs.
It's interesting to consider some of those elements of the draft and the lead up. I think of, the pressure on a team like Chicago in that way, with everything they've got, the way that roster is coming together. And then you sprinkle in Caleb Williams, who everyone expects to go number 1, Mina, the conversation about him and his personality, the way he conducts and carries himself in the lead up to this draft has been fascinating for what seems to be, in all actuality, our first true Gen Z quarterback. How much do you factor that into the way you think about him going to the next level and just really what we've got coming down the pipeline, a generation of player that it appears to be different, especially at these leadership positions that a lot of the NFL is used to?
Yeah, I saw our friend Pablo Torre had a podcast with Dave Fleming, used to be a coworker of mine, and I think Fleming was talking about how decision makers or GMs or people in NFL circles express some apprehension about what you're talking about, which is his personality. First, I want to say there's no doubt in my mind that this is true because I have been around these guys. I've heard these people talk. This is how a lot of these guys in the NFL still think. So, it's a real thing. I don't agree with it, obviously, but it's a real, and obviously, I guess, but it's a real thing. I think what's interesting about Caleb is to me, the fact that it's not more of a story just speaks to how damn good he is at football. Because if he was not the unquestioned number 1 pick, if he was in the May Daniels debate, I think it would be something that's brought up a little bit more. Imagine if Caleb Williams was at the now infamous Topgolf outing. There would be questions. How did he interact with everyone, right? What, is he a leader? Is he an alpha? I look at the interview that he did with another friend of ours, Ryan Clark, at the Pivot, and the quotes coming out were just great because it was just pure quarterback. He thinks he's the best. He wants to be Tom Brady. He wants to. That's what matters, guys. It doesn't matter that he paints his nails or that he shows emotion. What matters is that he's a killer who thinks he's the best, and clearly both of those things are true.
No, what matters is, according to Kevin Costner in Draft Day, did anybody show up to his birthday party?
Yes.
That's what everybody...
Did you pull out driver at Topgolf? Yeah. And how many people came to your birthday party?
That's what you want to know. So Mina, we know he's going to be number 1. Who of the names we've been saying over and over and over ad nauseum since the end of the season will the camera be on in the green room as we wait and go, oh, they didn't get picked there, who's going to take them? And we're waiting for a while. Is there one or two players you think of that may fall into that category?
I wouldn't be surprised if one of the top 3 edge rushers takes a little bit of a fall. Speaking of Dallas Turner, Latu, who I mentioned, and Jared Verse. Just because as I've done all of these mock drafts, it's actually kind of hard at times to find places for them because so many of the teams you think might go defense in that first 25 or so also could use an offensive tackle. A team like the Rams comes to mind. Like everybody assumes, okay, well, the Rams, defense, no doubt. You lose Aaron Donald and pick 19, you get Murphy Jr., potentially Johnny Newton, one of the 3 edge rushers. But guys, I'm telling you, Sean McVay's probably going to go offense, right? He's his first round draft pick ever. And I think there's a lot of teams like that. I think like the Colts, everybody thinks needs a cornerback, but they're probably going to go with a receiver or a tight end if Brock Bowers is somewhere that maybe they won't. But I'm just saying there's so many points in the draft where you'd think a team might go defense, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go offense. And if that happens, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those edge rushers or maybe one of those top 2 or 3 corners is still there at the end.
All right, so if that's the player or position that might be one of the biggest headlines coming out of this, what about team, Mina? When we turn the page on night 1 of the draft, what team do you think has the biggest chance to make the move that we're all talking about Friday morning?
Well, I think Minnesota is the one that I think I would be stunned if they don't make an aggressive move to go get the quarterback. Most likely McCarthy, because I do think probably the Patriots stick and take Drake May. The question to me is going to be, okay, if not Minnesota, will Denver or Vegas be aggressive? And then the other one I would keep an eye on is Buffalo potentially trading up for a receiver. I don't know if they'd be willing to part with what it would take to go get Odunze, as I've been advocating for, but they jump out to me as a potential Brian Thomas Jr. destination as well. Don't know if they love him, but it's just such a glaring example of need aligning with some of the players who are available. And then, of course, they should be trying to win now with Josh Allen.
It is one of the most wonderful times of the year. Mina's got me fired up now, frothing at the mouth. So, Mina, happy draft weekend. Thank you so much, my friend. Enjoy it, and we'll talk to you again soon as we start giving out grades on the other side.
See you guys.
Thanks, Mina.
Mina Kimes can truly do it all, but I don't think we should allow her to do this giveaway pool because she would just win instantly. So you out there, you should enter this because we're giving $1,000 away in bonus bets at DraftKings. If you're not already, follow this account, GoJo and Golic. Enter the GoJo and Golic draft pick'em pool. Answer a bunch of questions about the draft, and if you win, you get $1,000 in bonus bets. Not too bad.
Hey, listen, free time there, free to play, and $1,000 in bonus bets here that are up for grabs for you there. So who wouldn't want to pass up on that? And you're right. We shouldn't let Mina play, but at the very least, listening to her, probably a good idea.
Listen, one of the smartest moves ESPN did was re-upping her. Let me tell you, you don't want to lose. I'll still never forget. The draft was in Nashville, right? When you, Jason Fitz, her, and it might have been somebody else
it was me, Jason Fitz, who's got a great draft show over at Yahoo. He's doing today. Field Yates, Dominique Foxworth. We had a stacked cast.
All your guys' reaction, I remember when Daniel Jones got picked by, that was the draft, right?
Yes, Daniel it was. Thanks for bringing that back up again, so all Giants fans might mention it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, while he got paid, we still really don't think that he's the quarterback of the future.
And again, I will say, the reaction was that the Giants and Dave Gettleman decided to do that at 6 where no one else thought they would or should have at that point and could have gotten him later in the draft. Not anything against Daniel Jones, but just Dave Gettleman's continued defiance of everyone in the lead up to that. Because those are the moments that end up defining draft nights, Dad, when one person believes that they know better than everybody else.
That's exactly right. And I equate that, and I keep remember when Ryan Tannehill got picked at number 7 by the Dolphins, and we were all like, what? And that's when, again, I talked to Ron Jaworski, former quarterback in the NFL, in this business forever. He said, if the team likes a guy and think it's the franchise guy, no matter what you take him, whether you take him in your spot, whether you trade up to take him, because that's the most important position, so that's what you do. And if that's what Gettleman thought, he's the guy running the show. We've seen right moves, wrong moves on all teams, but If that's the guy you think, then that's the guy you take.
It's also why he doesn't have a job anymore.
Well, that's true too.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, you can think it's the guy all you want.
Yeah.
And I, like, listen, all respect to the people that get in those positions, but again, you're judged on that. So you bet. The other thing is, you better be damn sure.
Yep.
That's what this comes down
That's
to.
the thing. You can never be damn sure.
Continue our division breakdown of the biggest needs for tonight's NFL draft. And in the AFC North, the Bengals got requests for trades ahead of tonight's draft from two of their current stars. Pro Bowl edge rusher Trey Hendrickson reportedly requested a trade Wednesday per Adam Schefter. He's looking for a more long-term security despite reworking his deal less than a year ago. And then wide receiver T. Higgins, who received the franchise tag from the team, also requested a trade in March. Bengals pick at 18. GoJo, how do they approach this draft? And what do you think about these two trade requests so soon after they already worked out deals?
Not surprising for historically one of the cheapest franchises in sports. I mean, this is not. I just saw a podcast appearance that Andrew Whitworth did, former Bengals offensive tackle that wound up finishing his career and winning a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. And he talked about how difficult it was when you feel like you've outplayed your contract at that organization to try and get them to pony up for that long-term extension. He mentioned one year, I think in 2015, when he tried to go back to the table with them, they ended up drafting an offensive tackle in the first and the second round here. This Bengals team drafted Miles Murphy out of Clemson last year in the first round, and I saw some mocks had them potentially looking at edge rusher again, which would send a pretty clear message to a guy that outside of TJ Watt last year, Dad, was the most productive sacker of the quarterback in the NFL with 17 and a half sacks.
They have gotten better. Let's give Cincinnati credit. They have gotten better over the years, because I remember back in the days of ESPN.
Better at what?
At better at paying and treating their players better.
I feel like they got better because they lucked into Joe Burrow, who forced them to actually behave like adults.
As I did an interview years ago with Takeo Spikes when he was with the Bengals, and he talked about how it was difficult to get a regular-sized towel for showering
They used to have to walk across the street to the University of Cincinnati's indoor.
So
that was a poverty franchise.
It's
for
gotten
a long
little
time.
better. They've got some talent, obviously, with Burrow and obviously Jamar Chase, who they picked up the fifth-year option on. That was a no-brainer. But they're going to have to pay a lot of people. Hendrickson him and his agent wanted a long-term deal. Didn't happen. It was a year extension they got. So still hoping to get a long-term deal from Cincinnati. T. Higgins is on the franchise tag, which if they don't get a new deal done, I'm sure he'll play on this year. But they definitely have some people to pay.
They have a lot of people to pay. It seems like Hendrickson might be the odd man out in this one, despite a guy who, ever since he came there, has outplayed his expectations, been one of the most productive rushers in the NFL. And that's the volume stats, that's the deep metric stuff, pass rush win rate, all these different things that you can measure to show this guy's been incredibly effective for Lou Anarumo's defense.
Yeah, he has. But all that said, they're probably going to go on the offensive side, right? Losing Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle.
Sure.
Because Burrow has now been hurt a couple of times.
And listen, they went out there and they acquired Trent Brown this offseason. You already had Orlando there as well.
Right.
So I think what you've got is an offensive line that on the bookends, two of the biggest guys in the sport trying to protect Joe Burrow, but going an offensive line, J.C. Latham doesn't seem like it's going to be down there anymore, but that could be a Marius Mims-Main. If Talisi Fuaga, a guy who could kick inside and be an interior guy for you, drops down that far, I think that would be insane value for them. But yeah, the charge for this team is pretty simple. You could say defensive back might need some help, but I think if you're the Bengals, you got lucky. Like I said, you hit the jackpot. That Joe Burrow was one of those rare quarterbacks that gets drafted and actually can lift a franchise, actually can survive being sacked 70-plus times in a season. With the wide receiver crew you ended up there, seems like you're going to be able to keep the band together for one more year. I think they're going to strong-arm T. Higgins on that franchise tag unless he's really willing to play hardball.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think he's going to play on.
And so now it's, hey, you got to get this offensive line, which they tried to do, right? They tried to do what the Chiefs did in hockey line change the group in front last year, but now you've really got to push all your chips to the center of the table.
Yep, I would agree with that. Then you look at Pittsburgh; they have the 20th overall pick. Is it they lose Deontay?
By the way, Orlando Brown, just because I couldn't finish out his last name before. We had him on the show at the Super Bowl. Great guy.
They lose Deontay Johnson. Well, we know with the wide receivers, they have some personality issues as well.
Well, I mean, Deontay Johnson was a big part of that. You know, the fumble incident earlier in the year where it looked like a lack of effort showing up on tape. We heard, I mean, there was a players-only meeting through all this. We talked with Cam Hayward about some of that discomfort there. And so now you're trying to kind of remake that. You're trying to kind of turn the page on this offense by swapping out the quarterbacks, the changing coordinator you made last year. So
you have two quarterbacks now on one-year deals, right? For the Steelers, Russell Wilson on that one-year deal for league minimum because Denver's paying everything. And they did not pick up they picked up Justin Fields, but they did not pick up his fifth-year option. So both quarterbacks, 1 and 2, on a one-year deal. So we'll see what goes on with that. But you got to believe that I got to go O-line here, Mike. Even if it's interior O-line, that they're going to have to shore up that offense.
Yeah, they released their starting center from last year, let him go there. The one I've seen mocked now, I just did a hit with the Pittsburgh station this morning. Graham Barton out of Duke. Been a big riser in this class, a ton of versatility along the interior. Played left tackle for the last few years at Duke. And listen, in a pinch, I think could help you out there. But I think his best days between the power that he displays, some of the things he did in the run game out of a two-point stance, his lower body, how flexible he is, how strong his core is. I think this guy's got a super bright future. One of my favorite guys to watch in this draft class. What he did on the edge against some really powerful rushers in the ACC last year, I think bodes well for his transition to the inside. Him at 20, I've seen mocked a lot of places, so that seems like it could be somewhat of a foregone conclusion there as they continue to try and rebuild that offense in front of those quarterbacks there. Dad, now we start to get into the, surplus category. The Baltimore Ravens picking at 30th overall. This was a team that stunned a lot of people by not making it further in the AFC playoffs last year with the way they were. Historically great track in the regular season. What do you see as a big need for Baltimore coming off last year?
They pick up one O-lineman in Josh Jones. They pick up Derrick Henry, which was huge. But they lost 3 O-linemen.
Yes.
So, and I love the way their defense plays. I mean, Kyle Hamilton is turning into an absolute star on that defense. But I like the way their defense is playing. So this is another reason why earlier when we were talking with Claudia giving us the odds, it was 9.5 offensive linemen. And why we both said over, I think we're going to see O-line again here.
Yeah, I would agree. Defensively, You had the brain drain certainly on the defensive coaching staff, but you kept the majority of your great pieces there. Matabike, Roquan Smith, and Kyle, like you mentioned in the secondary. That spine of the defense really healthy. I think you can overcome that. And offensively, it's interesting because they rotated tackles a lot last year. And so you had Patrick McCarry, who got a ton of reps there, rotating in with Ronnie Stanley. Daniel Faalele on the other side was going back and forth with Morgan Moses. So not totally inexperienced in that group, but we've seen Ronnie Stanley's dealt with a lot of injury over the last couple of years. Part of that rotation has been out of need there. So Jordan Morgan, who came on with us, I think would be a real fascinating fit. First off, just the size there. Daniel Faalele was a mountain of a man, but Morgan, incredibly fluid athlete for his size. And I think in that scheme in Baltimore that's been really multiple, Todd Monken's a guy who likes to get guys out on the move, and that's something that when we talked to Jordan, he said, hey, I focused a lot more on getting out there in space, being a puller, working on screens. All that stuff would fit really well in that Baltimore
Also a guy, though, that could kick down because they lost 2 guards.
Sure.
In free agency,
I think in a pinch, like I still think because of what an athlete is, some of the spots he gets in trouble, he gets going a little bit too much. So I'd be curious about that transition to the inside, but I don't think it's totally outside of his skill set. So Baltimore there, shoring that up because, again, these are garnishes on a team we expect to keep going off what their path was last year. The Cleveland Browns a little more interesting, Dad. Their first pick doesn't come until the second round. So much of this team is, hey, you just need to make sure you do whatever it takes to get Deshaun Watson back in the driver's seat. So who do you like here for them?
Well, they also get Jameis Winston. Remember, they went through 4 quarterbacks last year, the last one being Flacco. He's gone now. And I think the backup is important because, let's be honest, you can't count on Deshaun Watson being out there. I mean, he hasn't proven that, A, with suspension, we know what he went through, and then with injury. So you better be damn well set at the backup position, and now that's Jameis Winston's job out there. You know, Amari Cooper had himself a year. Njoku, the tight end, really kind of flourished as well. These guys, again, with 4 quarterbacks to be able to do that. They picked up Deontay Foreman. They should get Nick Chubb back, but we'll see. I mean, he had a nasty knee injury, so others may have to pick up the slack until he can get back. Probably more help on the outside at wide receiver. I would imagine at that point, one of the deeper, probably the deepest position in this draft.
Yeah, I've seen some places like if Keon Coleman gets down in this range, really impressive athlete. I know the time he ran gave people a little bit of pause. But the other thing I'd say is, like, especially if a couple of good guys bleed down further and maybe you trade back into the back end of the first round, O-line depth. Like, I know you draft DeJuan Jones early on last year, but you had 3 tackles go down with knee injuries over the course of last season. O-line had been a strength. You lose Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, going over with his son to Tennessee. So that position all of a sudden feels a little bit tenuous, and it's going to be huge for Deshaun Watson's success.
Every team in the AFC North has changed one coordinator. Baltimore, they changed defensive coordinator. The other 3 changed offensive coordinator. So, yeah, some transition there as well.
Coming up next, we'll take a look at more change, rumors, and whispers ahead of the 2024 NFL Draft with Dianna Russini here on GoJo and Golic. All right, we're fired up for this one. It is draft day, and that means we need to tap in with one of our favorite friends and NFL insiders. You can check her out over at The Athletic or potentially in an Orange Theory class in the New Jersey area. Dianna Russini joins us now, fresh off getting it splatted up this morning. One of the most competitive people I know has found a new outlet now. So, Dianna, is this how you want to start your draft day?
Yeah, watch out, moms of New Jersey. Here I come. It's truly sad what my life has evolved into. As if my career isn't competitive enough, I feel like I have to add to it. So I started Orange Theory, and I am an addict, guys. And it's really just, I think the joy I get of being able to go there and beat out people. And most of the people in my class are a lot older. But for me, I don't care. It gives me something to do and feel like I've accomplished. And really on a day like today where, gosh, I'm really anxious, which I have no idea why. I'm not Kevin O'Connell. I'm not Sean Payton. But I just felt like that was just a good way to kind of start the day, knowing that this is going to be a really fun few hours, knowing that no one has any answers right now and everyone is looking for information. And it's funny because, as you guys know, you can't bring your phone in Orange Theory. They're pretty strict about it. But I went up to the coach today and said, hey, I really need my phone today. I have a family medical emergency.
Oh, wow.
I'm on call. Such a lie. Totally just did that because I just didn't have the energy, truthfully, to go, I'm a football reporter and today's the draft. And, if I can get a text from the Giants and they tell me they we're able to get this trade to move up, then. So long story short, the workout was good despite the fact that I had to tell a little fib to keep the phone, which the phone was lighting up, but most of it was just people stressed out going, what are you hearing? What do you know? Let us in.
So what I've learned from this is if I go into my Orange Theory class, which I had done yesterday, and I see Dianna there, I am grabbing my hammy and I am leaving because I don't want to be shown up by her. So I want to ask about, we always talk about draft time as the lying season, and you have a bunch of notes out there and thoughts out there and information that you get. Is this one of the more difficult times for you to actually get the info you're getting and believe it? Because of some of the lying that may be going on?
It's a great question because it is the biggest challenge I have this time of year. I wrote a column yesterday that I worked on for a while. It's a pretty basic title. It's What I'm Hearing. And what I do is I just try to take as much information that I've learned over the last few days leading into today, because really, guys, the serious focus on who these teams are going to start taking starts over the last weekend. So it's funny, I was playing with the idea of like, should I start writing last week? And I said, it's just going to be a bunch of crap anyway. Let me wait till we get closer to the draft. So yesterday I published essentially what I'm hearing, and it's going to hold up through today because it's pretty much the same stuff, which, we'll get into in a minute. But, I really lean on the people that I've known the longest, where the relationship now is so past just throwing me one little scoop on a transaction of a player they're signing or a trade that they're planning. Some of the real core inner circle, the people that I have these relationships with over the years, they're my people. And I have these conversations where they'll say, look, we really want Drake May. Don't report that. But, you can share, this is the kind of work that we did in terms of the quarterbacks. Here's what we did behind the scenes. So a lot of the people I trust will tell me what they're actually doing. I just won't say it or report it. As for the others that are lying to me, you guys have known me a long time now. I don't really hold back on saying, I know you're lying to me. So, which truthfully, personally, I am working on that because I don't think people want to be called liars, right? So, I was on the phone 2 days ago with someone in New England, and I started to laugh when they were telling me something. And I said, look, I probably bought this line in 2013, 14 when I started, and I was just a little hungry bunny looking to take any scoop I could get. but I'm old now, buddy, and I know how this works. So why don't we just cut it out and talk real? And he completely changed. He's like, all right. And so it was really, the dynamic was really funny because he's like, I called him out on it. Like, we're not doing this anymore. I'm not doing the BS talk. So yeah, it is hard, but I call it out.
So you've called it out now. We've got all these lines in the water. What personally are you most curious about then going into tonight based on the things that you've been hearing in the lead up?
I have so many, but I woke up feeling, and I have actually woken up the last few days feeling this way, anxious for the Minnesota Vikings. And there's layers to it. One, just the fact that they let Kirk Cousins walk. And there were people in that building that we know of, right? They've been pretty public about it, who wanted to sign Kirk. Ownership in the end realized that contract is not something that they wanted to sign up for. A 35-year-old coming off an Achilles. They want to start fresh. They have so much confidence in Kevin O'Connell as a head coach. And it was on display last year of what he's able to get out of his quarterbacks. But the fact that they let Kirk walk and now they need to find the guy. This player needs to essentially be a superhero. And I'm anxious for the team. I'm anxious for the player they pick because they're carrying the weight of the world of the Vikings on them, knowing that this team is completely focused on getting a quarterback in this draft. Okay, so that's part of it. The other part of it, where my anxiety is coming from them, is they may get boxed out. They may not even get the guy that they want. So not only will they miss out, not only is there potential of them missing out on their first choice, they may miss out on their second choice. So after all of this, could you imagine if the night ends and the Vikings get perhaps the fourth, fifth best quarterback on the board? To me, that's not going to be good enough. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on their GM and their head coach and this coaching staff to really find a way to get the most out of them. So for me, the Vikings are the one I'm like, ooh, this thing's got to get going here because we need to figure out what the answer is going to be for them.
Of some of your draft buzz, the thing that intrigued me, because I felt, and I know you crossed your fingers on his health with Michael Penix Jr., I think he could end up being the best quarterback of this draft. We'll wait and see, but you said that stock is rising. I've heard that a little bit. When you say rising, how much do we think rising?
So let's go back to the first question you asked me today about the lying, right? I had a GM that I'm really close to and I trust, who's not even in the quarterback game. And he said to me, I'm just going to put this on your radar. You have to do your own work on it, though. I said, okay. He said, Penix. I said, what about it? He said, he's the name you're not hearing for a reason. So that told me that he probably has another GM buddy or coach who is on the quarterback market, right? And is probably sharing information. So I spent Monday and Tuesday digging on it. And I came across a few teams, 2 teams specifically, actually, who came across Penix, not because they hadn't seen him, right? So it's obviously everyone has seen him on the field. They saw him playing last year. It's just the work a lot of these teams are doing are on Washington's offensive line and their wide receivers. So the offensive coordinators and even the quarterback coaches and just people on the offensive staff are watching tape of Washington. And they're like, wait. We're here to watch the linemen, but man, this quarterback is good. We should probably tell our head coach about this. We should probably just speak up. So teams have been sort of, Penix has almost been like a byproduct because teams are doing so much work on those other positions. They're like, wait, I think Penix needs to get looked at a little bit more. So when we talk about his stock rising, I think it's a little bit because he's become an afterthought, but now teams are in on it. Okay, so that's one side to it. And the other side is his stock may have been up the whole time and we just didn't know. And we're just talking about the top prospects left and right. But Penix may be up there. So this could be the year where we go, man, we messed up. We should have been talking about him earlier.
The one that was there all along, sitting right in front of you.
There.
Like the girl in the rom-com with the glasses and her hair up. All he had to do was take it off, put the hair down, and ready to go. Dianna Russini, always ready to go.
She was right there, Mike.
Dianna, you've been right there all along for us. We love you, buddy. Thank you so much. Enjoy draft night. We're fired up to watch it alongside you and see how the hell this all shakes out.
It's going to be awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. Love you both.
Thanks, Dianna. Appreciate it. She's a great spokesman for Orange Theory. You work out, you have that kind of energy.
Look at that. Start your day the right way on draft night. We'll finish our day with Emerson Latzia next.
Oh, no.
finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to end the day. As always, download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you hear VSiN on the radio. Follow us at GoJo and Golic on Twitter tonight. Also going to do plenty of draft reaction live alongside the 2024 NFL Draft's first round. Really looking forward to that one. And if you missed any of this great draft preview, you got all day to listen to it. Go and check it out wherever you get your podcast. Our great guests like Joe Alt, who we expect to hear his name called in the top 10 of the draft tonight. ESPN's Mina kind enough to join us as she's going to be out in Detroit with that crew getting ready to go. And Dianna Russini, NFL insider over at The Athletic, got us fired up to finish off the day here. Feeling really ready to go there. So all great stuff. You can listen to it all day wherever you get your pods or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done with the show. Speaking of balls of energy, though.
Getting fired up.
There are very few who bring as much zest to life as our buddy here, Emerson Latzia. You can obviously see him on this show sometimes, on The Sweat, on the weekends around here at DraftKings. But for my money, pound for pound, the best man on the street, man, that there is in the game right now. And so with Caleb Williams set to become the #1 overall pick in the draft tonight, there's been a lot of conversation about his style, the nail painting, all these different things. So we sent Emerson out in the streets here in Boston to try and get a read on how people felt about this heading into the draft. Take a listen.
Hello, hello. Oh, don't you look away. I need a woman's opinion on this. Since you're Canadian, this is a perfect question for you.
Am I gonna be on YouTube?
Hell yeah, brother! So Caleb Williams, he paints his nails. Is that a red flag or a green flag?
I don't care.
Not a flag at all.
That's what I'm saying.
He's an open-minded person, and he's loving and caring.
Green flag, who cares?
Amen, brother. I like you, man. You know what? Most people today have actually been pretty cool about it. They're like, just
be
go.
yourself.
What do you think about an NFL player painting his nails? Would you want a quarterback who paints his nails? Red flag or green flag that he paints his nails?
Yeah, no, not in Boston, we don't.
No comment.
No comment? Okay, I'll take
You know
that.
what that is.
My pants, man. Do you paint your nails a lot?
No, that was a long time ago.
I've never painted my nails before. Would you be able to help me? Let's go. Will someone here help me paint another nail on my
Can I? Yes.
Please, please. Would you want to paint one of my nails?
Sure, let's do it, man.
Oh my God. One finger down, Billy. Do you want to try and paint one of my nails?
No.
Would you be willing to paint one of my nails for me?
Hell no.
What is the key of getting this right?
Not moving, so stop.
Oh my God. I feel like Thanos right now. I think you know what you're doing. That was my 6th one, and that was the absolute best. Look at this. There we go. Yeah! Actually, could you finish me off and do my last one for me here? I've got all 9 of them done now. Market 10, baby. I'm not gonna lie, I love the smell. Oh yeah.
Emerson huffing nail polish fumes at the end of this.
It's everything I ever wanted out of that segment. So I'm glad. I'm so glad.
And his nails look great.
Yeah, the one lady told him to stop moving. We just stop moving.
Emerson does need people to keep him in line like
he
that.
really
So
does.
that woman was a
Wow.
breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Thank you to all those people. And it's a good reminder. It's nice to see people keeping an open mind about this stuff.
Yeah.
2024, we should care
Absolutely.
about this stuff. You want to throw out a little bit of style in your game? Go right ahead,
cares?
especially if you can ball.
And I love how the woman's just like, that means he's loving and he's caring. And there you go, Caleb Williams. You're giving the people what they
Not sure
want.
if I get that from painting her nails, but the bottom line is, who cares?
Exactly. Let it ride. And you know what? You know who's really not going to care? Chicago Bears fans soon when he's tossing touchdowns on their very improved team this upcoming fall. That was this. Claudia, speaking of the Bears, let's get to that. We love a good stadium rendering around here, and Chicago has provided us with even more.
Yes, so fans will be happy to hopefully get him, and then also possibly a new dome. $5 billion proposal, enclosed stadium next to the current Soldier Field. They're asking for public funding, so they need a little help here.
Yeah.
$3.2 billion for the new stadium, plus an additional $1.5 billion in infrastructure. What do we think about this?
Well, listen, I love open air. I loved playing in the cold. I love the home field advantage of that when you get to bad weather, especially if and when the Bears get back to the playoffs. But this is going to be a dome, and I get it. I get it because you want to use it for more than just 8 football games, right? You want to be able to use it year-round, Final Fours, which obviously it can be very cold out. It can be when that happens, depending on the spring. So I do think it's a good idea for total use of that place.
Yeah, I mean, this is what modern stadium
Yeah.
building's been about, which is being able to use these things year-round. Everyone looked at Jerry Jones making money hand over fist in Dallas with Jerry World and decided to replicate it. And it's also these teams, especially in cold weather environments, want their shot of hosting a Super Bowl or any number of these other events that become increasingly more likely with a domed stadium here. Takes away, I know for a lot of people, snow football, winter football is nostalgia. The outdoor nature is a part of it. I've been a little less married to that than most, but Dad, this is kind of the way that things are going right now. The public funding thing is lame. Like, pay for your own stadium, grow up, Peter Pan.
That, unfortunately, is never going to end, though there are some, like I know in Phoenix before the Coyotes left, they were going to build a new stadium there. That was all going to be privately funded. They weren't looking for money from the fans there at all. So that's something that's a way for a team to hold a city hostage a bit or try and work something out.
Well, remember, we had this back and forth with whether they're going to go to Arlington Heights, potentially north of the city, that plot of land. And so I know amongst fans in Chicago, it's interesting, too, talking about, all politics are local. The way that this stadium had always been received, because there's not a lot of tailgating around there. It's a little bit hard to get to.
It is.
I do hope in all of this, there's an opportunity to create a better game day experience for fans around that so they can be around that area. Maybe it's a little bit more walkable. Maybe there's an area for people to tailgate and enjoy themselves there. But
as far as playing, I liked playing in the cold. I would take 20 degrees over 90 degrees any day of the week. Give me that. I'll play in the snow, I'll play in ice, because, again, the athletic ability of everybody else comes down to me then. So I did not mind playing in cold or snow or anything like that.
Yeah, I know this is like the anti-O-lineman thing for me to say, but I was never really as invested into it. My idea of football weather is like 65 degrees and sunny. I think it always seems like a shame in the NFL. You spend all these brain power, all these man hours putting together these meticulously crafted game plans.
Then they go out the window.
And then it's all of a sudden you go out there and the game's going to be decided by some botched punt and whoever's able to run it back in a foot of snow. It feels sort of silly. But again, there's great, as a viewer, it's awesome. The visuals are incredible. It obviously makes for really compelling action when you get to see everybody's breath and the steam rising.
But overall, you completely understand why you do a dome. There's so much more revenue that's out there to be had when you have a dome and can do it year-round.
And we know this isn't about sports. This is always about money.
About money.
At the bottom line of all of this. All right, let's get to the third here. We have walked across a wilderness of mock drafts, of insiders, of people doing, and you know what? Shout out to everybody during draft season that does a lot of the hard work, people that have given us insight in the lead up to this. It's a year-round process for a lot of these people, but we are now finally here on draft night. We've talked about it. It's awesome from the player's perspective because you do get to watch all of the emotion wrapped up into tonight, the storytelling to learn how these people got here with their families, what they've sacrificed to now, yes, earn the opportunity to start at the bottom of the totem pole again and to have to work your way back up. But man, what an accomplishment to get here. You are rewarded handsomely with millions of dollars and can change your family's life. But such a cool moment there. So excited for all the guys that we've gotten to talk to who are getting ready to hear their name called. That being said, this is also our last chance for some bold predictions for tonight. So Dad, Claudia, anything that you guys really want to get off your chest that you think we've been waiting to see, we've been talking about in the lead up, and you think comes to fruition tonight?
I'm tempted to go the 1-2-3 quarterback, which would be the first time in NFL draft history that we see that. However, J.J. McCarthy at number 4 plus 380 is enticing. So that would be my bold little beer money sprinkle, if anything.
Here's mine. The record player for most players selected in a single draft whose father made at least one Pro Bowl is 4. You have a bunch tonight.
Yeah.
You have the possibility. I think that record gets broken. You have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Did Joe's dad make a Pro Bowl?
Yeah. Joe Alt is in here as his dad, John. There's 8. There's more than 8 total, but there's 8 fathers who made at least one Pro Bowl whose kid possibly may be drafted. So that record gets broken tonight. It's 4 whose father played and has at least one Pro Bowl. I think that record will be broken tonight with players like Joe Alt and others out there already.
Wow. All right. Fathers and sons. I was just going to say Byron Murphy was going to be the first defensive player taken in this draft, and now I feel like I've really let everyone down.
I'll throw in 6 quarterbacks in the first round.
6. I still say I agree with Mina Kimes where I think we get 4 before we get 6 in the first round, but we just heard from Dianna also. Maybe Michael Penix Jr. is the name nobody's talking about. We get to stop wondering, and we just get to start seeing. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the draft tonight. Thanks so much. We'll get ready for the best sound in sports and be back to break it all down with grades tomorrow. Bye.